2026 is going to be an awesome year. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. First off, we got Foundations of Recovery. This is our flagship program. We're starting it in January.
This is for anyone, man, woman, or couple who wants to come and reclaim their heart from shame, trauma, and betrayal. We start off with an education on all sorts of principles, give you the common language. We feed you from a fire hose in terms of all things recovery.
It is such a great start to recovery. And we get at the roots of things, Tyler. This isn't like any other program. Like, this is our healing journey in process, and Foundations is where we begin.
If you look at the value that you're getting there to kick off a good recovery with all of the right education, all of the right language, and a team to get you started while also being directed by Brandon and myself through the whole process, what a deal.
So if you're interested, if you're struggling, if you've been wanting to do something for a long time, jump into this. This only comes around every so often, and we would love to have you there.
Click the link in the description to sign up for it. And to make it even sweeter, we're also including a raffle for a free pass to the Radiant Dawn retreat. Anyone who signs up for Foundations will be added to the raffle for that free Radiant Dawn pass. If you're a man and you sign up for Foundations, your name still gets entered, and you can give that pass away if you win it to any woman that you want to.
So what you're saying, Tyler, is if you sign up and participate in Foundations, you could possibly go to Radiant Dawn for free?
That's exactly what I'm saying, which is crazy because Foundations by itself is already an insane value.
Man, I sound so salesy. But it actually is awesome. So come to Foundations. And even if you don't come to Foundations, sign up for Radiant Dawn. It's beyond therapy, the best healing experiences that you can have.
Click the link below and come join us.
Can I be too informed about recovery?
Welcome to the Real Talk Recovery Podcast with the Therapy Brothers.
We're brothers, we're therapists, and we know recovery.
Bring your stories, your questions, your successes with real recovery. Brandon, another interesting topic as usual. This will be a fun one today.
Oh, this is a good question. I'm excited about it. And I think that the guests that we have here will help us flush this out really well. But before we dive into all of that content, we've been talking about our Radiant Dawn conference. Tyler, anything you want to say about it?
Yeah, just again, that it's going to be a phenomenal conference. It's a women's conference for those wanting to work a wholehearted recovery from betrayal trauma. And at the time that we're recording this, which is actually on a couple-week delay, we're already filling up our slots. We have a few slots left at that discounted price of $1,000. And then after those first 15 slots fill up, it'll bump to $1,500. So it's so it's a 3-day conference.
In other words, get in on it now while you can at this price. I imagine it's going to sell out at that price pretty quickly. So hopefully, Tyler, by the time we release this episode, there's still spots at the lower price. If not, it's still well worth the full price, $1,500 to come to the conference. So it's experiential, meaning you're going to have an experience. It's going to be awesome. And so check it out is it radiantdawnconference.com?
That's right.
Okay. All right, Tyler, should we jump in?
Yeah, let's do it. Courtney is here with us today. Courtney, thank you for coming on the show. And if you don't mind, just introduce whatever parts will be pertinent for us to hear and ask your question, and then we'll get going.
Okay, my name is Courtney, and I'm in Canada. My question is there such a thing as being too informed when it comes to recovery? Can you be, too deep into recovery, I guess? Can you know too much?
Give us a little background, Courtney. Give us a little context as to why you're asking this question.
Okay, so I started this recovery journey for myself for betrayal trauma in January. And I kind of am the type of person who goes full tilt. So counseling, podcasts, lots of podcasts, books, support groups, everything. And in my last couples counseling session with my husband, the counselor had kind of said, like, you're doing a lot and it's overshadowing the little bit that he's doing. Maybe slow it down. It kind of makes him feel not good enough. And so I just got to thinking, like, this is helping me a lot try to process betrayal and his pornography addiction. But can it be too much?
Tyler, you have thoughts?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts, but before I just jump in and like share exactly what I'm thinking right now, I probably
breathe. Tyler just got triggered by what you said, Courtney.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh, there was only one little piece that triggered me, and that's why I'm going to try to step back and actually just be curious with this for a second. So you said something, and I want to ask you this because I think there is actually such a thing as therapy burnout. There's such a thing as like overdoing it sometimes with things. But my question is that if you had the choice to do what you're doing right now as you're doing it, does it feel like it's overwhelming? Does it feel like it's too much? Or is it something that you find that's helpful and effective for you?
Oh, definitely. It's helpful and effective. I don't feel too burnt out. And I'm doing workbooks and stuff for my 12-step group. And there are some days that I just don't pick it up. I don't do it. I know that I need to take a step back or whatever. So I do try to pace myself.
Okay. Tyler, other questions you have?
No, yeah, I want to make sure that, well, here's the deal. Like right off the bat is that your recovery is your recovery. So you should work it at your pace. I don't think that the answer to getting a good recovery is a race to the bottom of who can do the least, or not doing your recovery because you're going to hurt his feelings because he's not going to do the same things you're going to do. Like that's already managing his emotions by not working.
So Courtney, in other words, what we're saying is, it triggered both of us. And let me explain the trigger. We're both thinking this is crazy, horrible advice from a therapist to say, hey, race to the bottom, be codependent with your husband about his shame, and like pump the brakes on getting healthy. And so what Tyler and I are both wondering is maybe there's more context to what's going on as to why that therapist would give you that counsel. Or else, honestly, they're just a horrible therapist. So my guess, I like to give therapists the benefit of the doubt because I've been misunderstood and the things I've said, like totally misconstrued.
That was a much nicer way to say it, Brandon.
Well, and maybe there is context, right, Courtney? Yeah. Like if you really take a step back and you say, okay, why would a therapist say that to me? Like, let's give the therapist total benefit of the doubt here that they're trying to help you. Mm-hmm. Why would they say that to you?
I mean, my husband and I are very different, right? I'm like type A, get it done. If something needs to be done, I get up and do it. And he's, let's sit and think about the 6 different ways that I could do it before I step foot into doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, never leave a project unfinished, and he will start lots of things and then not complete them. Like, I think we are different personalities. And I'd like to think that that's what our therapist was sort of referring to, was our personality differences. But it does make it hard for me then to understand my reality, because all the work that I'm doing seems like a lot, and then all the work that he's doing to him might seem a lot, but it's so little in comparison, right? So
Courtney, is it frustrating? Like you have a certain language now and understanding of recovery and what it actually is and can be, and it's like you can't connect with your husband on that?
Yes. Yeah. And he does it. I mean, even my therapist had sort of said it. He doesn't like it when I use like therapy speak, but it's really, for me, it's just language, like words that I never had before to describe, intimacy aversion or things like that. I never had that before.
Right. And so your husband kind of looks at you like, what are you talking about? You're very intense. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to get the other side of the coin here, right?
Yeah.
And you're very intense. You're using all this new language. You're kind of, it feels like you're shooting all over me with what I should be and should be doing and what recovery is. Like, ugh, this is so overwhelming. Stop overwhelming me, Courtney. That's kind of what's happening. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
In a little bit of a context, I can see where the therapist is coming from, with that understanding. And yet, Tyler, what do you feel about that?
No, actually, it makes sense that there would be a discrepancy probably on both sides. Like, Courtney, you're probably looking at it and going like, geez, you're not doing anything for your recovery. I don't know if you're saying that out loud or not, but you're probably feeling some of that. He might actually be really trying really, really hard. This is a common problem that we have with couples where one person feels like they're really busting it and the other person's like, oh, you're doing everything you should have been doing all along, like,
exactly.
And so there, that gap there is something that probably needs to be acknowledged and probably needs to be addressed. It needs to probably be talked about, and it's okay that recovery might look a little bit different between each partner too. One of the things that you probably like about your husband is that he's laid back and easygoing, and it's also one of the things that might be most frustrating. And so yeah, I think with Brandon, your questions, there probably is a little bit of merit to it. My thought about it though is a little bit different, that the answer still isn't necessarily to not do your own recovery work. The answer is really to be curious with it yourself and to say, okay, where might I be overstepping my bounds? Maybe stepping into control or manipulation, if at all. And I can maybe back off on some of those things. I can be empathetic and understanding and sensitive to my partner, that they might be looking at things a little bit differently. And that might be able to take a little bit of my frustration away. But the answer is still, in my mind, not to not do your own work.
Yeah.
Right.
I really like what you said, Tyler, there of both individuals are individuals. But here's the deal, Courtney, and I think this is the struggle from the betrayed's point of view is if you got full throttle, like you're 100 miles an hour in your recovery, and you're the hare and he's the tortoise, and he's going at 5 miles an hour and he's bumping along. When you've experienced betrayal trauma, and all the everything start to come out, you realize there's some deal breakers in my relationship that if those things continue, then I don't know if the relationship's going to work. Things like broken trust, infidelity, gaslighting, manipulation, numbing out, disconnecting, intimacy aversion. Like, I could go on and on. There's those things that are prevalent when there's an addiction prevalent. And from a spouse's point of view, you're like, hey, we gotta like fix these things. These things need to be worked on and constantly kind of managed, and so that real recovery, peace, and happiness can happen, and real awesome connection can happen between the two of us. But dang it, you're moving at 5 miles an hour. And at this rate, like when we're 80, we might have a little bit of intimacy. I don't know if I'm okay with that, right? Courtney, what do you think about what I'm saying?
Totally. That's exactly how it feels. Like, if this earth-shattering thing doesn't make you get off your butt and step into it and like work for it, what would it take, right? Like, that's kind of how it often feels for me, is like, this has completely changed my life, completely changed the course of my life. And him stepping into genuine recovery, not just sobriety, but genuine recovery, to me means, okay, if you do that, we can stay married, we can keep raising our kids together, but
Yes.
If you don't, like, where's the line for that? Like, how minimal are you going to do and get away with it, kind of. Yeah.
Courtney, your healthy recovery will dictate or demand for you to step into your honest truths. and not just sit back and say, okay, like I'll sacrifice these truths forever for a long, long time, waiting and waiting and waiting for you. Then you're not in good recovery because you're not being honest with yourself. Right. And that question that you just posed is a very important question and this is not about him. It's about you, Courtney, of at what point or how long do I sit and wait? So I actually think friction at this juncture is very good for you and your marriage. For you to say, I want more, I need more. And for him to be like, that triggers my shame. This is hard. I don't want to do it. So he's either going to man up and step up and hear you and fight for you and not do recovery exactly the way you tell him he needs to,
right.
but do recovery, like actually work recovery. And so that friction is like therapeutic friction. It's not a bad thing. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Let me clarify a little bit of what you just said, Brandon, because I know some of our listeners are here going like, okay, Brandon just said, go start fights and control my husband. and that's not exactly what you were saying. So
no,
I want to just be clear that what Brandon is saying right now is that it's okay for you to be honest with your feelings, even if there is a little bit of discomfort and maybe a little bit of tension. It's probably not okay to go start fights and call names and just have a fight for a fight and then tell him exactly how to work his recovery. It is okay to say, this is kind of what I'm needing if I'm going to stay, and this is where I'm going to be going if not otherwise. And that will cause a little bit of friction. I think the right word was friction and not conflict, right?
Right. So, okay, Tyler, so does she pump the brakes?
Well, I've got another thought now that I've calmed down a little bit.
Okay, good. I'm glad. You're just so energetic, just chill a little bit, Tyler.
I frequently get accused of being too high energy.
Yeah.
So here's one more thought for you, Courtney, is that sometimes, and this is more on your side of things a little bit, maybe it's something to contemplate and think about here, is that sometimes I get clients who use their intellect and their learning and their pursuit of that learning as its own defense mechanism, where it allows them to feel like they're doing a lot, but they're really running from actually having to deal with some of the internal issues that are still there, those actual feelings of betrayal or fear or shame or whatever else might be there. And the solution is always a cerebral sort of cognitive thing. And so those clients oftentimes will turn into the learning and consumption of things. They're reading 2 or 3 books a week, or they've got the podcast on continuous loop even while they sleep type things, and they can come and they can talk really good with recovery, but then the actual practical application of those principles is almost being dismissed or avoided because there's just so much effort and time being spent up here in your brain.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think that for me, part of being in a group keeps me away from that because talking to those girls every week, and it helps me process for sure. Like I'm definitely not just consuming. And at the beginning of my recovery, I would say I could have very easily fallen into that category if it hadn't been for finding a group and, having a phone call once a week and chatting it out. And yeah, I understand.
It's like the person who reads all the fitness books and never works out. It sounds like you're not doing that, Courtney. Sounds like you're actually doing the working out, right, in recovery. So, there's another thing too that I see a lot, which is you're married, D-Day happens, or however the disclosure comes out. Maybe it comes out slowly or whatever. But then recovery becomes everything in the relationship. The relationship is about sobriety. It's about, we only talk recovery. That's all it is. and it's interesting because that's counter, or it's the opposite of recovery, because recovery is actually living a balanced, healthy life, where you have a relationship other than just talking about what you did in your 12-step meeting, or whether he's been sober, or what is a relapse really, or what is not a relapse. So if you're getting so much input of that over and over and over again, if you're listening to hours of that, hours of real talk recovery on, then throw in a different podcast about some other hobby or something else. Talk to your husband and connect with him on something else, on the kids, or and because that puts you more in balance again. And so I do think there can be too much consumption of recovery content.
I do.
Does that make sense, Courtney?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, I was going to agree with you, Brandon. And I know that I've actually been guilty of this myself several times, where I try to I'm constantly reading self-help books and things. And I kind of know when I'm getting to that point when I get through a book and I, number one, don't often remember a whole bunch of what I just listened to. That's part of it. Or I do remember it, but my brain isn't able to synthesize it into the things I've already learned. And so it feels like there's not a lot of deep feeling and learning and listening to those things, or reading about those things. It's just more of a surface level skim. And at that point, I often have to slow myself down and intentionally, purposely slow down the amount of consumption, because I think our brains can really only hold so much information at a time anyway, while we're trying to learn.
Courtney, what do you think about that?
Totally. I completely agree. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why I sometimes don't step into my step work,
you take a
for
break.
A week. I take a break because it's just not, I'm just going through the motions then. And that's not real recovery either, if you're just going through the motions. So definitely, I totally feel that way. I think my biggest, hang up, or the reason why I had to ask, or felt like I should ask the question, was it's hard then to know if it's, I'm trying, I'm just not giving it my all, or I'm trying and this is the best that I can do, or I'm not really trying and I'm just doing the minimum amount. I think a lot of betrayed spouses feel like, this should be something that you give your all to. And then you listen to podcasts or read books and you hear of stories of these guys that just have this radical, road to Damascus moment. And then there's others that go yeah, I have a problem and I will read a book and attend a meeting once in a while, and you're like, what's genuine?
So Courtney, I want to ask you, and be as honest as you possibly can be here. Okay. If you were to just flush out the fear of trying to control him into recovery, and not answer this question from that place, but really check in with your gut, and with your gut feels, and with what your emotions are telling you about how safe you are, how unsafe you are. What is going on with him, with his recovery?
I would say in terms of his sexual addiction, he's very aware and he realizes that it's a problem and he's doing the work. When it comes to intimacy aversion, I think the fact that the therapist that we're seeing calls it intimacy anorexia and it's intentional, I think he's really struggling to get over that piece. I think in his mind, it was never intentional. He never withheld love from me. He never withheld praise. It wasn't intentional. And so I think he's good in one aspect and he's safe and he sees it. And then in another aspect, I think he just can't accept it.
So where you want movement more is with the intimacy anorexia.
Yeah.
The sex addiction, you see some progress and he's dealing with that. I'm almost, your answer is really interesting because what I'm hearing you say is that he acknowledges and sees the sex addiction, but that he's in denial about the intimacy aversion or intimacy anorexia. Mm-hmm. And so you don't have much hope or feel good about him moving forward with recovery with that, because you think that he doesn't even really acknowledge or see that that's a problem. Is that?
Yeah.
So it might not just be laziness or whatever. It might actually be like, why would I acknowledge why would I work on something that I don't even acknowledge is there? Yeah. That's frustrating, especially with intimacy, anorexia as a spouse. That is a very tough place to be in, Courtney. So
yeah, there could be, that answer was actually really interesting, because what you basically said is, yes, he's working his recovery. So there's a part of me that's feeling good about that. And then there's this section that doesn't feel quite so good. And Brandon's right, but it also might be an indicator of other things like vulnerability and shame being much deeper and bigger around your actual relationship with one another than even the acting out, sexually with porn or whatever would be. And so this could be a really big insight if the discussions were capable of being had, and being fair to your husband would be to discuss some of the reasons why. And if he's still there just totally in denial, that is going to be frustrating. It's going to be feeling like hitting a brick wall. And that's where some of the friction Brandon's talking about is probably going to come. But understanding that there might be some underneath things there. You use the words, tortoise and hare earlier. And I think, in my practice, sometimes we talk about dealing with a turtle, and the turtle is the one that's always in self-protective mode. They tend to go inward. They tend to shut down. They tend to slow down. They tend to kind of pause and paralyze themselves when there's fear and shame. And it could be that your husband is operating as a turtle. And if that's true, then some of the work is to invite coming out of the shell and movement forward again, even if it isn't at a really fast pace. And it'd be nice to know if that's part of what's going on as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, Tyler, we get the question all the time, how do I get into your groups and how do I get the therapy that I need?
We frequently have groups starting in an online fashion, so you can get help wherever you are in the world. You can find a group that will help you with the things that we talk about. Brandon, how do they find you?
liftforrecovery.com. You can get into my Lift group. It's a full comprehensive group program, both for betrayal trauma and sex addiction, and it's awesome. So I'd love to have you there. What about you, Tyler?
We run what's called a Foundations of Recovery group, which is for both betrayal trauma and addiction as well, all online. And it covers the basics of recovery, shame resiliency, mindfulness, a toolbox, helping to cope with healing, and also different kinds of communication. And you can find that at lovestrong.com.
So there's options. There's no excuse now. If you are ready to work recovery, you can come work with me, or you can come work with Tyler, and you'll get the help you need at either one of our programs. So come and join us.
At lovestrong.com or
liftforrecovery.com.
Yeah.
But Tyler, I think, and Courtney, I'm wondering what how this will make you feel when I say this. I actually think that the sex addiction piece is more of a symptom, like the acting out, the behavior, the compulsive behavior sexually. If we look at it closely, it's a non-vulnerable way to meet sexual needs, right? And so I wonder, I believe the sexual anorexia or intimacy anorexia is more closer to the root of the issue. And in dealing with that, you're going to actually have to step into the cave you fear to enter. You're going to have to deal with your deepest fears, your deepest pains, in order to create the shifts that you want to create to be a real vulnerable partner who can create intimacy. And I think it can be frustrating of, okay, you're working this sexual addiction recovery, which almost feels like you're placating me and things, because you're saying, look at me, I'm dealing with the symptom here, but what I'm not addressing is the root. Mm-hmm. And what I'm not really going after are the biggest things. What do you think about that, Courtney?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I felt this way kind of all the way along, is I don't think he thinks he's worth doing that recovery work, honestly.
Yeah.
And, you know, I made my peace almost with the sexual addiction stuff relatively quick, I want to say. Like, I kind of went, you know, that's between you and God. It really doesn't have a lot to do with me, even though you had an affair. I kind of was able to put that aside, because for me, the bigger hurt was the intimacy anorexia stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff directly affects me and was directed towards me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like through both of my pregnancies and my deliveries, even, like, he just was so disconnected and not there. And that's stuff that I can't get back, right? So I would definitely say that the IA stuff is way more the root.
Yeah. It's closer to the root. Yeah. It's interesting what you said. You said, I don't know if he thinks that he's worth doing that hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get stuck, right? That's where the loop, it's like, okay, I can do the sexual addiction work because, like, yeah, we can kind of dance on the surface here, but am I worth it? And so to do that work, a sexual or an intimacy anorexic, I keep interchanging those two. An intimacy anorexic will do whatever they can to not be intimate. And so if I can do sexual addiction work in order to not get down to the intimate stuff, then I'll do the sexual addiction work, right? So it's frustrating as a partner. It's really hard.
Well, Brandon, the other thing that in that cycle you're talking about is that that's really where the rubber meets the road too, on a partner not being able to do their husband's work for him. Is that when you get down to the actual root of the issue here, it's like, if it's a shame issue here, which it sounds like it is, when you said he doesn't believe he's worth it, what, are you going to go to him every day and be like, hey, you're amazing. Like, you're the best person in the world. Like, and he's
that will trigger his shame and he'll disconnect.
He's going to be like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, I deserve it. Like, unless he's willing to go into that place and say, you know what? And so that's why the frustration comes is that there really is, that's where the buck stops and you can't really reach too far in, other than to be encouraging and understanding. But understanding that that's going on could also help to take some of the sting out of it for you, so that you can make decisions in a little bit more of a rational than an emotional way. But yeah.
Courtney, I want to ask you, do you go to the same therapist as him?
Yes. So our couples therapist is our couples, and then it's also his personal. And then I see a different lady, but in the same office.
Okay. And with his individual work, is there trauma work being done?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. How long has he been going to therapy?
April of this past year.
Yeah. Okay.
Not super, super regularly, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
If he were my client, how often are you doing couples work?
We did do an intensive. So we flew out to the location and did 3 days. 3 days.
Was it intensive. In Colorado?
No, we did it in BC,
in
Abbotsford, BC, but kind of by the same. Yeah. And then, maybe once a month, once every other month, we've done couples. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, sex addiction and intimacy anorexia is not a couples issue. So, and what I mean by that is, it's not that you don't solve it by solving the relationship. Mm-hmm. It affects the relationship drastically, yes, but you don't solve it by solving the relationship. So you right next to his side, fixing this with him is not the critical piece to solving it. And so I every month to month and a half, having a couple session is, I think, a good idea. A check-in, kind of logistically, where are we at? How are you feeling? But I would be focused on individual trauma work with him, and I'd be doing EMDR, parts work, ART, any of that stuff that's going to hit those roots over and over and over again. And unless that starts getting addressed quickly, I believe you're kind of throwing your money away a little bit. Mm-hmm. And you're going to feel more and more frustrated with the therapy. And so that's what I would kind of maybe take a step back if I were you and say, hey, like, like, this is what I want to see, you know, and for you to be willing to do your own trauma work as well. So,
yeah, I did do a couple sessions of EMDR this past summer for the IA trauma stuff, and I found that incredibly helpful. And actually, after our last couples appointment, I had said to him, like, I think you just need to see him on your own. Like, I think, you know, I'm going to see my girl and you see him. And because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm doing good work and making progress. And I want him to step up and do that as well. And I can't make him, right? I'm powerless. But I also was really hopeful that this therapist would be, you know, his big slogan is sort of men make men. And so I was really hoping that this therapist would like call him to get into the deeper stuff and to dig down to the root of things. And I haven't seen that. And it's hard for me to know if that's just because I'm not staying in my own lane, or if that's because, right? Like,
but Courtney, it's okay for you to say what you just said. Okay. I feel from you a little bit like I'm scared that I'm like overstepping my bounds, and you can reflect back to him and to the therapist what you're seeing without and the therapist might have boundaries with you and say like, we know here's the process of what we're doing. Thank you for your feedback. Right. But it's okay. That's what you're seeing. And it's important, I think, for you to voice up and acknowledge that you're frustrated as to the course here and where this is going.
Okay.
Yeah, there's never a problem with sharing your own feelings and your own perspective. That's not controlling. It's okay. Like, that's authenticity. And if you don't ask those questions, you won't get explanations either. Like, you're just going to continue to go on in the darkness, feeling the way that you feel.
Well, and identifying my needs, right? Coming back to that, which you said at the beginning, like, that's a very difficult thing for me, because I was a very confident person before I got married. And then I married someone who's IA and SA, and just over time, you lose your voice. You lose, you know, I shouldn't have needs. I shouldn't be able to speak what I need because it's a burden, or it's too much, or I'm too controlling, or I'm too, right? Like, all the things that you start to believe about yourself. And so now that I'm in recovery, I'm really trying to find my voice again and being able to identify my needs. But I'm still always worried that I'm going to come across as controlling, too demanding, your expectations are too high, you know, all the things that I've been told for years.
Courtney, I don't know. Oh, go ahead, Tyler.
One of the things that it's just funny. It's funny, Courtney, that the measuring bar so often gets set by the person who has the biggest problem. You know, with boundaries, you know, so often we hear this with boundaries work where someone starts to set some boundaries and then they come back and they're like, well, that wasn't right because I'm being controlling now because they said that it makes them feel this or this or this. And it's like, well, actually the measuring bar isn't from the outside in, it's from the inside out, which is, why did I set the boundary? And if I can trace it back to saying, well, I have these values and I'm protecting these values inside myself, and they happen to not like what I did, that's a healthy boundary. And I could do the exact same boundary in terms of what it looks like, but do it for the wrong reasons. Be like, yep, I'm going to make sure he changes and that he gets better, and I'm going to force him to do this. But it's really your internal intention that would measure whether or not you are being healthy. It's not the external. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think as a therapist and just being well connected, I have a healthy distrust for therapists that treat intimacy, anorexia, and sexual addiction, and a healthy gauge for what's like healthy and what's not. And it's interesting, you know, so many people, they think, well, they have letters behind their name, so they know what they're doing. Not necessarily true. And I'm blown away sometimes when I hear about therapists and it's like, whoa, like they are a good therapist. Like I would go there. That's amazing. Like they're better than me. But then I'm blown away a lot of times too by like, oh my gosh, what is that therapist doing? And I don't have enough context, Courtney, to tell you whether you have a good therapist there or not. But I will tell you this. And you may be presenting very different with us than you do in therapy and with your husband, but you are not too intense. Like your energy is not overwhelming, and you don't seem like you want to, control this conversation or force your will or make sure that we hear something.
Mm-hmm.
You seem very open and willing to listen and willing to learn and humble. And so that's how you've been in the last 45 minutes here with us. And if this is kind of the normal you, then I would say, Courtney, keep doing you. Like, keep it up. I wouldn't mute that or stop that, because you're just inquisitive and a learner and you're honest. That's okay. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's how I view myself. Like, I ask questions and I just want to know what's going on. And, and I am really working very much on trying to identify my core values and come from a place of that and stand in that truth versus trying to control. Because I think for the last 6 years, when everything was out of control, right? Obviously, I was like, who did I marry? This man who is so disconnected from me and so unloving at times. And just, yeah, I thought, well, it has to be me. It has to be me. It has to be me, because he tells me it's me, right? You're too controlling. You're too this, you're too this, you're too this. So, I mean, I'm trying to unlearn all of that kind of stuff and regain my voice and my truth. But I'm still always that like hint of you're too much. You're too much.
Mm-hmm.
Your expectations are way too high for everyone else, including yourself. You're too controlling. You're trying to manipulate the situation. You don't stay in your own lane very well.
Do you hear the gaslight there?
Yeah.
So do you hear it, Courtney?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference between him saying you're too much, you're too much, you're too much. He's saying you should change, you should change, you should change, versus him healthily having a boundary with you, being able to say, Courtney, I hear you. Yes, you have a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas. You've learned a lot of things. And that's fine. But I'm not going to feel forced or obligated to do this or that because you're telling me about those things. I'm okay. Right. Mm-hmm. But the gaslight there is the turn of the tables back on you. Look how unhealthy you are, Courtney. Look how too much you are. Look how you need to change. And then you're spinning up over here, wondering about how unhealthy you are while he's not working on himself. And that's exactly how gaslighting works. In fact, that's a great example of it. And you're well versed in it. You know about it, right?
Yeah. If there's anyone
learn a lot.
If there's anyone who knows, it would be you.
Yeah.
What are you thinking and feeling, Courtney, right now?
It's all stuff that I know. Right. In all of the recovery work that I've done, it's finding your core values and standing in your truth and being boundaried, which is also something that I massively struggled with just in my marriage. I don't feel like I was, struggled with boundaries in any of my other relationships, but I felt like, I guess, coming from a Christian background, you submit to your husband, the leave and cleave thing like that. I all took that to mean you don't have boundaries with your husband. And I just took on whatever he, gave me, which was a lot of, you're a problem. And so I know all of this. I know that, finding my voice and speaking my truth and being boundaried and it coming from an internal place and not an external place of control is right. I'm just now scared, I guess, of being told that all of this recovery work that you're doing is really giving you a complex or, giving you all this language that I'm just not versed in. And then that makes me feel bad about myself because I don't know all this lingo and I haven't read all the books or listened to the podcasts. And I mean, my head goes immediately to, well, why not? You could listen to a podcast, you could read a book.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And the middle ground might be that he could lean in a little bit and say, you know what, I'm probably not going to read or listen like you do. And I could go and be responsible for my own learning instead of telling someone else not to learn. It's like, I think this is, and maybe you're going to get me on my soapbox, so I'm going to stop quickly, but this is something that's wrong with our world today is that seems to be the solution is that let's just all slow down and not excel so that nobody feels bad. This is recovery doesn't work that way. Life doesn't really work that way, despite the fact that we want to make it feel that way.
Courtney, what's the feedback you get from your group members about, I'm sure you've thrown some of this past them about how overwhelming you are, how much you learn, or what do they say to you?
They understand my frustration. There's one other girl in the group that's very much like me, kind of type A, worst case scenario for everything. But it's nice to have other girls in the group that do offer a different perspective. No one in the group has ever said like, you are too much, you ask too many questions, you're too intense. I think we all get it. We all understand betrayal and betrayal trauma and what we're working through. And even though that looks different for each of us, we still all feel it. You're still on your journey, and there are some ladies that do tons of work every week and some that don't, right? Like I understand that we are all different, but I think with those lovely ladies, like we're all just learning to find our voice again and to step into like who God made us to be and not who your husband says you are.
Okay. So right there is one of the critical pieces for you that I want you to cling to, which is to find women, and they might not be perfectly healthy, but women who want to be, and women who can support you, to trust your gut, to have a voice, to step into your truths, because you may come up against your husband, therapists, church leaders, people who want to drag you away from recovery. And I want you to just step into the healthy and step into that healthy friction. And the way that you do that is to have support behind you, is to be able to say like, it's okay, you're okay. Because walking this path alone can seem nearly impossible, right? So rely on good support. Listen to healthy, good things too. I don't know exactly what you're listening to. There's some bad information out there. Tyler and I have talked about it before, that can push you into things like fear and control and all of those things. So just really what you listen to, notice how you feel, and whether it's like pushing you forward into your strength or making you feel more crazy and more controlling. But yeah, rely on that support, because you're going to have to stand strong even when maybe more than just your husband is saying you're unhealthy and you're crazy and you shouldn't. Right?
Yeah, I agree 100% with what Brandon's saying right now. And it sounds like you're doing those right things. It sounds like you've got a good team and, a pretty good BS meter too. So I think you're on the right track.
Thank you. So. Yeah, I'm trying to be, right? Again, that's part of my learning, is fleshing out things that just don't feel right. I have listened to some of those podcasts that instilled a lot of fear, and read some books that did not prove to be helpful at all. And so, yeah, the girls have been the most supportive. I think getting yourself a group of girls, for anyone who's listening, if you don't have a support group, or women that you meet with or can like talk this through, they just provide a totally different perspective.
It's so critical.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, Courtney, we're running low on time. We sure appreciate you being here today. Do you have any last question for us that you have to get out before we let you go?
I think that was it. I'll probably think of something later.
Okay.
Reach back to us.
Yeah, we'd love to have you on again. So we really appreciate you coming and having courage enough to talk about your situation. And I think ask really important questions that you are not alone in the situation that you're in. So it's going to really help somebody. So thank you, Courtney.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.